The bride turns her back to the guests, raises the bouquet above her head, and tosses it into the crowd. Single women reach out, trying to catch the flowers. Whoever does is, according to tradition, the next to get married. Today, this moment comes across as a fun wedding game. Sometimes the women genuinely battle for the bouquet, sometimes they awkwardly step aside, and occasionally the flowers just hit the floor because no one actually wants to be next. But why would a bride give away her bouquet at all? Why throw it over her shoulder? And is it really true that this custom started because guests once literally tore apart the bride's dress, desperate to take home a piece of it for good luck? Well, here's the thing. There's an unexpected catch to this story. It gets retold so often, it has come to feel like a rock-solid historical fact. But solid evidence that medieval brides were mass-mobbed by guests ripping their clothes off? There's almost none. What we're likely dealing with is a beautiful legend that mashed together several different wedding customs. To sort it all out, we have to separate the history of the wedding bouquet from the history of throwing it. Flowers had been part of weddings long before the lush bouquets we know today. But ancient brides weren't necessarily holding roses, peonies, or lilies. They might wear wreaths, weave plants into their hair, or carry bundles of fragrant herbs. Rosemary was tied to faithfulness and memory. Myrtle stood for love and marriage. Ivy symbolized constancy. Some herbs were prized for their strong scent and were believed to ward off illness, misfortune, and evil forces. A wedding was seen as a dangerous passage from one life to another. A girl left her family, became part of a new household, and took on a new social status. Such transitions were surrounded by rituals. The bride was shielded from envy, the evil eye, and unseen forces. So the plants weren't just decoration. They could symbolize fertility, health, loyalty, hope for children, and a happy family life. What looks to us like a pretty floral arrangement would have been seen back then as something closer to a charm. But a pricey bouquet of fresh flowers wasn't something every family could afford. The flowers had to be grown, bought, and preserved until the ceremony. That's why wedding bouquets in the modern sense really took off in the 19th century, when the flower trade began to grow and interest in the symbolic language of plants skyrocketed. In the days of Queen Victoria, flowers could be read like a coded message. Some meant love, others innocence, loyalty, hope, or remembrance. When choosing a bouquet, people paid attention not just to the types of flowers, but sometimes even to their color and how they were combined. Queen Victoria herself used myrtle and orange blossoms at her wedding to Prince Albert in 1840. That wedding had a huge influence on wedding fashion for decades to come, even though many of the traditions we now think of as classic existed long before her. Over time, the bouquet became one of the bride's ultimate symbols. But holding flowers during the ceremony is one thing, suddenly hurling them at your guests is quite another. And that's where the famous torn dress story comes in. According to the popular version, in medieval England, anything connected to the bride was considered lucky. After the ceremony, guests would try to touch her, grab a flower or a ribbon, or tear off a piece of her wedding outfit. The garter, supposedly, was the most prized trophy of all. Getting your hands on it meant good luck, and a wedding of your own in the near future. To distract an overly eager crowd, the bride was said to toss her bouquet at the guests and make her escape. It's a vivid and convincing story. You can easily picture a frightened young woman clutching her dress, throwing flowers into the crowd, and disappearing while everyone scrambles for the lucky trophy. Historians of wedding fashion, however, treat that version with caution. Customs tied to the public confirmation of marriage, the wedding bedroom, stockings and garters, those definitely existed. In some places, friends escorted the newlyweds to the bedroom, cracked jokes at their expense, or threw items of clothing. One known example is an old British game in which a stocking was thrown at the bride or groom. Whoever hit their target was considered the next to marry. But that doesn't prove that brides everywhere tossed their bouquets to save themselves from having their dresses ripped apart. What's more, the very idea of destroying an expensive dress seems doubtful. Before mass production, a wedding dress was rarely bought for just one day. Most women married in their best outfit, which they then kept wearing to holidays, church, and other important occasions. Such clothing could cost a family a substantial sum. Sometimes the dress was passed down to female relatives, remade or used for years. Letting guests tear it to shreds would have meant destroying valuable property. Of course, some crude wedding games may well have happened. Guests could get loud, pushy, even frightening. But the popular tale of the bouquet as a medieval escape strategy probably appeared much later than the custom itself. Perhaps the story came from mixing up the bouquet and the garter. Today, these two rituals often sit side by side. The bride tosses the bouquet to single women, and the groom tosses the garter to single men. Those who catch them, supposedly, will be the next couple to walk down the aisle. Yet the garter toss, in its modern form, is most likely far younger than the wedding legends claim. Some researchers trace its spread only as far back as the mid-20th century. So it turns out that the ancient origins of many familiar wedding rituals could have been invented only after the rituals themselves appeared. The more ancient a custom seems, the more significant it looks. But if the bouquet wasn't bait for the crowd, why did people start throwing it? We don't know the exact date or the name of the first bride. Folk customs rarely emerge on one person's orders. They take shape gradually out of many similar actions. Most likely, a key role was played by the idea of the bride as someone in a state of special good fortune. A wedding meant the beginning of a new life, the founding of a family, and hope for the future, which is why objects connected with the bride could be seen as carriers of her luck. This kind of thinking isn't limited to weddings. People keep celebrities' belongings, bring objects home from holy places, touch talismans, and believe that a special quality can pass from a person to an object and then to a new owner. The bouquet was perfect for passing along wedding luck. It had been beside the bride throughout the ceremony, and it carried associations with love, fertility, and family happiness. It could be given away without ruining the dress and without breaking with propriety. And most importantly, flowers are easy to toss into a crowd. Gradually, a new idea emerged. It wasn't just any girl who caught a single flower who got the luck. Only the one who caught the whole bouquet did. And just like that, the ritual turned into a tiny prediction. The bride had already crossed the line between single and married life. By tossing the bouquet, she was, in a way, passing on her old place to one of her friends. The flowers flew from the woman who had just gotten married to the one who was supposedly destined to go next. That's probably why, in the traditional version, only unmarried women take part. But why does the bride turn her back on them? If she simply picked one friend and handed her the flowers, it would look like a personal decision. Everyone else might think the bride considered that particular girl the most worthy, or that she wanted marriage for her more than for anyone else. A toss over the shoulder leaves the choice to chance. The bride can't see where the bouquet is heading, so she can't deliberately choose a winner. At least, that's how it's supposed to look. The next bride is decided not by a person, but by luck. In practice, though, things play out a little differently. Sometimes the bride intentionally throws the bouquet in the direction of a specific friend. Sometimes a tall guest snatches it right over everyone's heads. Sometimes the flowers hit a chandelier, fall apart mid-air, or land smack in the middle of the wedding cake. And sometimes all the single women take a step back at the same time. That last one is especially telling, because it shows just how much our attitude toward marriage has changed. Back in the day, getting married soon was seen as a golden opportunity to gain a new status, financial stability, and a respected place in society. For many women, marriage wasn't just about love. It determined where they lived, how secure they were, and what their future looked like. Opportunities to earn their own money, own property, or build a career were extremely limited. So the promise, "you're getting married next," really did sound like a wish of good luck. Today, things are completely different. Marriage is no longer the only way to build an independent adult life. Not every woman wants a wedding. Not everyone is looking for a partner. And a public call for all the single ladies can put some guests in an uncomfortable position. Think about a woman who's recently been through a breakup, or a guest who's constantly being asked when she's finally tying the knot, or someone who just doesn't want their personal life discussed in front of the entire room. For them, scrambling for the bouquet might not feel like a fun game at all. That's why modern couples are increasingly putting their own spin on the tradition. Sometimes the bouquet is thrown to everyone and anyone who wants to catch it, regardless of gender or marital status. This time, the winner is promised not a wedding, but simply a bit of good luck. Sometimes the bride hands the flowers to a friend, her mother, or her grandmother. Sometimes the bouquet goes to the couple who have been married the longest, and some brides skip the throw altogether. They keep the bouquet, dry it, or preserve individual blooms as a keepsake. There's also a purely practical reason not to toss the main bouquet. Modern arrangements can be heavy. They use wire, decorative elements, and dense stems. Getting smacked in the face with a bouquet like that is not the most romantic way to find out a wedding is coming your way. On top of that, flowers can be pricey, and a bride often wants to keep them. That's why florists offer a smaller, separate bouquet made specifically for the throw. So it turns out that even within a single tradition, there's a little trick hidden. The girls aren't catching the bouquet that accompanied the bride through the ceremony, they're catching a pre-made copy. And honestly, almost nobody minds. The power of the ritual isn't in the specific flowers. It's in the shared anticipation, the countdown, the toss, and that split second when it becomes clear who got the bouquet. So why is it that the girl who catches it sometimes really does get married soon after? The reason might be pretty simple. The women who join the bouquet toss are usually younger, and a lot of them are already in relationships. The odds that one of them ties the knot within the next couple of years are actually pretty high. If the prediction comes true, everyone remembers the caught bouquet. If the girl stays single, people gradually forget. No one keeps score or tracks what happens to every winner. That's how most superstitions work. The striking coincidences stick in our memory, while the countless misses slip by unnoticed. But there's another side to the bouquet toss, one that has nothing to do with superstition. A wedding ceremony usually revolves around two people. Everyone else watches, congratulates, and takes photos. The bouquet toss briefly turns part of the audience into participants. There's movement, laughter, a dash of suspense, and a moment that's perfect for a picture. And that's exactly why this tradition fits so naturally into the modern wedding industry. A well-executed toss looks great in films, promo shots, and social media. It takes only a few minutes, needs no complicated setup, and adds a little spark of intrigue. Who's going to catch it? In that moment, the old idea of passing on good luck meets our modern love of a spectacular shot. So there's no single, simple answer to the question, why does the bride throw her bouquet? Plants have been part of wedding rituals for ages, symbolizing fertility, protection, faithfulness, and new beginnings. Later, flowers became a key part of the bride's look, and the bouquet itself turned out to be a perfect object to symbolically pass her happiness on to someone else. There is a story about guests ripping pieces off the bride's dress. It might be rooted in real, rowdy wedding games and old beliefs about lucky items belonging to the bride, but treating it as the confirmed origin of the bouquet toss? That's a stretch. More likely, the tradition developed gradually, blending several ideas together: faith in wedding luck, the desire to know who's next down the aisle, the symbolism of flowers, and the wish to turn the celebration into a game everyone can join. Today, the bride throws the bouquet not to escape a crowd. She does it because that's what brides before her did, because the guests are waiting for that moment, because it makes a beautiful photo, and sometimes because everyone wants to believe, even for a second, that you can catch your destiny with your own two hands. And if that bouquet is heading straight for you, there's only one question left. Do you go for it, or take a careful step aside? Have you ever caught a wedding bouquet? And did the promise of marriage actually come true? Tell us in the comments. Maybe somewhere out there is someone for whom this old wedding superstition really did come to pass.